Wolverhampton Wanderers. I've been a fan for as long as I can remember. There's been bad times like back-to-back relegations in 2012, dropping from the Premier League to League One. But don't get wrong, the highs have been high. Getting promoted to the Premier League in a record-breaking season, and the next year qualifying for the Europa League and reaching the Europa League quarter-final with 2 top 7 finishes, Wolves look certain to break into the top 6. But now, in 2023, Wolves look destined for relegation, after sacking Julian Lopetegui days before the start of the season, and not being able to spend a penny, and appointing Gary O'Neill in the last minute. So, where did it all go wrong? But to work that out, we need to go back a bit. Let's go back to when the project started. Back in 2016, Chinese company Fosun International bought Wolves for 45 million, gaining 100% control of the club, led by Jeffrey Shear. And they had one simple goal: take Wolves back to the Premier League as soon as possible. In the first season, they showed real intention, spending £36 million and made some big money signings of Helder Costa and Ivan Cavaleiro, 2 young Portuguese talents. And this was made possible by super agent Jorge Mendes, who was closely linked with Wolves and managed to attract some top talents. However, the first season was disappointing, with Walterzenga getting sacked 14 games into the season and appointing Paul Lambert to the end of the season, showing marginal improvements from the season before. But the next season would change the history of the club forever. On the 31st of May 2017, former Porto manager Nuno Espirito Santos was appointed, and the club spent 24 million, and they made key signings this season such as John Ruddy, Willy Bodley, Barry Douglas and Ryan Bennett. And Diego Jota was loaned out to Wolves, a very promising young star from Atletico Madrid, but was a player who looked out of reach of a club like Wolves. But this is where Jeffrey Shear's mate comes in and helps Wolves complete the signing of Champions League captain Ruben Neves for €17 million, and instantly becomes a fan favourite with his wonder strike that took the championship by storm. And he was a star who pushed Wolves over the line and got them promoted to the Premier League the first time since 2012. Wolves are finally back in the top flight, and they wanted to make a statement and splash 160 million on established players such as João Moutinho and Rui Patricio. These in this window were all successful at the club. This is a key point because after this window, Wolves struggle in the market, but we'll get into that later. Wolves had a season to remember, getting a European spot, finishing 7th and reaching the FA Cup semi-final. However, it ended in heartbreak, after being 2-0 up and losing 3-2. But that didn't matter. They were the giant killers. They were unstoppable against your typical Big Six teams, and this pushed them over the line to a historic season. And the next year rolled around and they spent another 100 million. But they had a different challenge this year. They had to balance Premier League football with the Europa League. But the fans were in dreamland, including myself. We experienced one of the greatest wins in the club's history against Manchester City after being 2 goals down and Matt Doherty scoring the winner. But once again, this season ended in heartbreak after getting knocked out in the quarterfinals to Seville, but maintained our 7th place status in the league, but missed out in European football due to Arsenal winning the FA Cup. But the future looked bright for Wolves, and the question was, how far could we get? Wolves go into the 2021 season splashing 80 million and spent over 40 million on an 18-year-old Fabio Silva, who was unproven at the top level, and Nelson Semedo for 30 million on the back of that disastrous performance in the Champions League against Bayern Munich. I'm convinced that Alphonso Davies still gives him nightmares to this day. And also this window, we let go of key players such as Diego Jota and Matt Doherty for around 60 million. This season was the first year Wolves had some financial fair play difficulties, as they had to sell players in order to sign players, but this was not a massive issue at this moment in time. This season would also be heartbreaking for Wolves. But on the 29th of November, this is where I believe it all changed. As Wolves played Arsenal, and early on in the game, Jimenez came back to the defender corner and had a collision with Arsenal defender David Luiz and was rushed to hospital and was eventually diagnosed with a fractured skull. Wolves went on to win the game, but this was bigger than football. The fans just loved him. He was a real legend of the club. But he was the heart and soul of the team and carried us, and from a team who doesn't score many goals, he was our main outlet and he was clinical. However, he was just never the same after that injury. But to come back from an injury like this, he's an absolute hero. And he recently joined Fulham, and I believe he can turn his career around, and now he's away from Wolves. But I always loved that man. Unfortunately, Wolves just never recovered from the absence of this man, as we threw an 18-year-old into the Premier League and he just was not physical enough, and he just struggled. And after a very disappointing season, the board started to lose faith in the manager. And at the end of the season, Nuno Espirito Santos left Wolves. He accomplished so much while he's at the club. He turned all our dreams into reality. and for that I'll always be grateful. But he's in Saudi at the moment, crushing it, so what can I say? But Nuno did have a dream. It was an end of an era, but a new era has to begin. Bruno Lage was appointed, and there was a lot of uncertainty around him, but I think in the grand scheme of things, with a tight budget, he did well and had a great first season in the Premier League. The fans really got behind him, but it led to a pretty average season, all things considered, after a poor end to the season. But on a tight budget, while only spending what they can sell, he did quite well in his first year at Wolves. However, in Bruno Lage's second year, he was given full financial support, being given 144 million to spend, spending money on players like Gonzalo Guedes and one of Europe's hottest stars, Matheus Nunes. There was hope going into the new season, thinking we could be fighting for Europe again. However, Bruno Lage was sacked, only being in charge for 6 months after suffering a defeat against West Ham on October the 1st. Wolves were bottom at Christmas and looked destined for relegation. However, on the 1st of November, our saviour was appointed, Julian Lopetegui, and he guided us out of relegation and finished 13th in the league after getting some new recruits in the summer to bolster our squad, spending around 35 million on some well-established Premier League names, and this pretty much brings us to the present day. However, there was a lot going on that we didn't know. Allegedly, Julian Lopetegui was persuaded to the job as he was told by the board that he would be backed and they would start a project behind him, as Lopetegui was the original man they wanted to get before Nuno, but he was lied to. So apparently, just before the pre-season, he was looking for a new club, but then he was told that he would be given a limited transfer budget, but this was another lie from the board. So he was finally broke and left his position as Wolves head coach, and I can't say that I blame him, because he was blatantly lied to. He probably made the correct decision to leave the club for his career, but this leaves Wolves in an awful position, sacking the manager days before the first game of the season, and they've brought Gary O'Neill in. Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Gary O'Neill, and I think he did a great job at Bournemouth and keeping on paper a pretty poor side up. But maybe Gary O'Neill is the man for the job, as he's a very practical coach and expects a lot from his players. Now the club have finally decided to break the bank after selling 140 million worth of players, after selling Matheus Nunes for 60 million, and this allowed the club to sign 4 players in the last 48 hours for around 27 million combined. And to be honest, Nunes never really got going at Wolves. You could see there was talent there, but he just lacked that extra thing. To be honest, I think it's good that we got fresh blood coming in. I mean, he striked just to get out the club. It's just bad. When I first made this video, it was going to be about how bad Wolves are, really, and just what's gone wrong completely. It's been a few weeks now, and Wolves have kind of turned it around, and we look like we could be okay. I think Wolves will be okay this season. I actually think we could do quite well. But is that just me being a hopeful fan, just wanting the best, but deep down, it's just not going to happen, is it? But I'd like to know your thoughts and how we might do, because I'm curious, and this video has been a bit of a shambles because of all the stuff it just took so long to make. But it's still curious about how we're going to do this season, so just let me know.